MOAM, the mother of all mocks. The way this is going to work is we are drafting half PPR. We are assuming this is a standard league, so no super flex or anything like that. And we're just doing our top 24 players. So it's not like we're drafting defenses or anything like that. So it's going to be Snake, I have the first overall pick, and then James is going to pick twice, and then I'm going to pick twice, and we'll just keep
Yeah,
working our way
and
down.
it's all right. It's as if we're both 12 different teams. Like we're not saying, oh, we have to fill in this position. It's really just like, oh, this is my first pick of the round. Who am I taking?
Absolutely. So with the first overall pick, I'm taking the most obvious guy off the board here. I am going Najee Harris. No, I'm just kidding. Not going Najee Harris, although he is on my overall board. This is an interesting discussion, I feel like, because it really goes back to, do you remember last season? Do you remember how the end of the season kind of felt towards the end of last year, where a lot of the running backs were kind of starting to disappoint and a lot of the wide receivers just continued to surge? It really feels like, because of the changing of the guard, changing of how these offenses work, and also just the general RB depth that's across all of the NFL, it really feels like to me that this is the year we really start seeing wide receivers go first off the board. And it's shown in the current ADP. Looked up ADP for half PPR, and guess who's at the very top of the list, at least for the
It's J
rankings that I saw?
Jeff.
Justin Jefferson, Jay Jettas, and that's who I'm going first overall.
Yeah, not surprising. I think that's who I would have taken as well. To your point, that really is the year, the seasons of the guard will change. I think people aren't quite realizing it just yet, but you can build a pretty hellacious team off of two stud receivers and a quarterback, and then just figure out, or actually, honestly, like three stud receivers if you just always pigeon your flex as a wide receiver, and then just kind of figure out the running back position. But when you get to that, the championship games, it was like dudes that had Devontae, dudes that had Justin Jefferson, and I mean that's pretty much who was in the lead. There's one more guy here because we're doing Snake, right? So I'll get him anyway. The player that's like on every championship roster ever is Travis Kelsey, and I think he's going to go way higher than anyone's ever expected a tight end to go this season. He's been creeping steadily, and this is a year. Spencer, who's been on the podcast, has said it. If he's number one overall, he might honestly take Travis Kelsey because it's like no one at their position is just heads and tails better than anyone else when you could like when you look at it than Travis Kelsey. I'm not that high on him. I think at some point the wheels fall off. It might not be yet, but his age is scary to me. I guess is all I'm trying to say. This is a very long-winded way of saying at pick number 2, if you're taking Jefferson, I probably have to swallow my pride and go running back, and it hurts, but I'd probably have to go CMC. He kind of proved he can be healthy. I love seeing him in that 49ers offense. If he was still a Panther, I would be way more sour on him, but as a 49er, I'm all in there. And then honestly, I think at 3, you're probably your safest bet is Jamar Chase or Travis Kelsey. And just to kind of bring up the discussion, I'll go Travis Kelsey here at pick 3.
I love it. The thing that we're going to probably reference a lot is all the good research that's out there in terms of empirical evidence that shows that running backs really start falling off right at their age 27 season, or if you're Derrick Henry, right after your age 27 season. And CMC's right on that precipice, but I like him enough still because he just doesn't have a lot of tread on his tires. Yeah, he had a lot of carries whenever he was at Stanford and had a lot of carries in his one really healthy season. But outside of that, like, I feel like teams that he's been on, all those good Panthers teams, this obviously very good 49ers team, they know how to use them and use them in the correct spots. And I feel like this is still going to be a very, very strong CMC season where he's just getting a lot of targets and a lot of rushing attempts. So I had him number 3 on my board. And then who'd you go second?
I went
Travis Kelsey.
Kelsey. Yeah.
I can't fault you for Kelsey, honestly. The dude just gets open. Like, you look up and it's like, why is there no one within 10 yards of Kelsey? He just moves so well. And I feel like he's going to be like Gronk, where like even when he's like 35, 36, 37, like he'll still just be moving into spots beautifully. And it's not even going to matter the lack of athleticism because he's just going to be so crafty. He felt like a 10-year veteran as soon as he entered the league. So I had Kelsey at number 9. However, I can't fault anyone for drafting. I wouldn't get mad at someone for drafting Kelsey number 2. I think that he's willing, like he's good enough to be able to go into the number 2
I think he'll
spot.
be a top 5 pick in most drafts this year.
Yeah. Just like my appetite for the tight end position is just kind of low, but I've been saying that about Kelsey for years, and I should have been drafting him top 5 this entire time. So nothing wrong with that. Any other thoughts about CMC or Kelsey?
No, I think the main points, why I would be higher on these guys than some others, and I'm sure we'll talk about them here pretty soon. I would be surprised if you or I didn't pick this guy next. So I won't try to spoil anything there, but CMC is like Shanahan knows how to use him. He gets the ball to CMC in space where you're less likely to get injured. He is not going up the middle, which is what just makes me feel a lot better about his situation. And then Kelsey's wide receiver one in the Chiefs offense, right? Like you can act like he's not a wide receiver, but he really is. You're allowed to put a wide receiver into your tight end spot and build a roster around that, and that's Travis Kelsey. I think that's just so valuable. You have to at least consider it. Maybe this doesn't make sense half PPR, but full PPR, he has to be a top 5 pick.
Yeah. If the Chiefs would have gone first round wide receiver, or if they would have gotten Hopkins already, it'd make me feel a little bit worse about Kelsey just in terms of touchdown potential. But like he's the only big threat at whenever it comes to the red zone. Like, what are the other wide receivers that are
I
going
think
to
it's
be
Jerick
going up the
McKinnon
ball?
is your other red zone threat.
Honestly, yeah. And no more CEH getting those bullshit 1 yard running rushing attempts right on the goal line. Like it doesn't really feel like he's going to be part of the offense. So Kelsey is just going to be beautiful for fantasy this year, and we're not going to see a Mahomes downturn. There's just no way. Like we had that weird
This
cover
this
two
is
swing, and
prime. This is prime Peyton Manning, prime Tom Brady, prime. I mean, just prime greats. Like you're going to see 10 years of Mahomes dominating, if not
yeah,
more.
yeah, just grab that offense. I'm going to continue to go just like what I would go in terms of order, and this might be a bit of a surprise to you. I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor here. I think he's
That is
primed.
surprising to me. You're correct. You surprised me.
I think he is primed for a big bounce back year. And it really feels like, yeah, he had a downturn or whatever, but honestly, it wasn't as bad as a lot of people try to make it out to be. He had a lot of big games last year, and the high end potential is just really solid. He had one bad game, one that he got injured in, and then he had a second bad game, and he got injured in that one as well. So if you take away all of the missed time, which is probably the scariest part about him, but he didn't miss time when he was at Wisconsin. He didn't miss a lot of time in his rookie year. I think he's primed for a big year 3. One of the smartest running backs in all of the league. The only thing that hurts this is the fact that it feels like Quentin Nelson has just like died. Like the guy went from a guy who looked like he was going to be a future Hall of Famer at guard to being a below average NFL starter, which is super weird. So that scares me a tad, but I think this offense is going to be better. I think this offense is going to run a lot with a rookie quarterback in there. And so if I had the number four overall pick and this is how the draft was going, I would go JT.
Yeah. Okay.
And then
Who's your?
the other one's super obvious, Jamar Chase.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Jamar, I think fits the same bill as Justin Jefferson. I feel like it could go 1-2 Jamar or J Jeff into Jamar for a lot, especially full PPR. We're half, so I think Chase top 5 makes sense, but
Yeah.
maybe not.
Yeah. I mean,
Not
Chase
earlier.
Chase missed all that time last year, and he was still incredibly solid. Like people kind of make it out like, oh, he's kind of had that like post rookie swoon, kind of like a sophomore slump, but no, he was still super good. So
Yeah.
I love Chase's upside. He
So
was wide
this
receiver 12 last year.
okay, and that was with missing what a month of the season.
Yeah, I had more than a month. Yeah,
If he's in, he's wide receiver 2 fantasy wise.
yeah,
Um, this one's the one that I'm so nervous. He has to be a top, 5, 6 pick. I thought maybe you'd grab him. I was hoping you would, so I wouldn't be stuck with him. He's a guy that I never trust, but always seems to be on championship rosters, and that's Austin Eckler. Right?
Ooh,
Like I don't love his situation right now. Like he's in contract disputes. He's on the wrong side of the 27-year gap. He's got a ton of use the last few years, but until the wheels fall off, I think you have to grab him, and you're going to hold your nose doing it. But I just don't know who I trust more um, than Eckler. I mean, it's Eckler and Barkley for me here,
yeah.
right? And it's like either these two guys. I mean, take your pick. They're both in a very similar situation. Ton of use last year. Um, have some injury history, have contract disputes, are starting to get kind of up there in age, and I don't love it. But at this point, you're not really going to love anyone you're picking, so it's just kind of where you're stuck.
I totally agree with you on Eckler. I still have him in my top 10, despite the age concerns. He's 28 years old, despite the size concerns. He's 28 and small, and even with the contract dispute, like all these guys kind of have their slight flaws, like you mentioned. What's so funny with this is who do you think has more 1,000-yard rushing seasons, Austin Eckler or Tyler Algier?
Algier, because Eckler doesn't rush for yards.
Yeah, he's never had 1,000-yard rushing season. He's come close. He's had two 900-yard rushing seasons, but still, it's crazy. What's so insane with this, though, is the other part that you mentioned. He has no competition at running back. That's Austin Eckler. If you look at the depth chart that the LA Chargers have right now at running back, it might be the worst in the league behind Eckler. You got Josh Kelly, who no one's excited about Josh Kelly anymore. 3.5 yards per carry in his career. Then you have Isaiah Spiller, rookie last year. A lot of people were real excited about him. 2.3 yards per carry in his rookie season. And then you have Larry Roundtree the third. He's from Mizzou, so obviously you already know he sucks, but also he has 2.2 yards per carry in his career. It is Eckler and nobody else in this offense, and he's going to get a lot of production because someone has to take the heat off of Justin Herbert at some point. So you got to go Eckler at the top 10. You
Yeah.
have to, right?
Again, I'm holding my nose. It's gonna stop happening at some point. You just can't rely on dump downs, and it's kind of like half of his production is a dump down into something special.
Yeah. I had Saquon and my next guy kind of tied. Like they're in the same tier in my mind. If one goes ahead of the other, I'm okay with it. I'll just take the other one. I like Saquon a lot. He had a big bounce back last year. Definitely kind of drafted him as like peak value, but you kind of have to because he's a league winner if he ends up popping off again. The other guy that I'm really excited about drafting in the top 10 was a guy who was a league winner last year, and that's Nick Chubb. I think he is right before he's going to hit that cliff. I think he's an angry runner. I think that is kind of the guy that you need to be looking for in fantasy. And then the underlying numbers just love Nick Chubb. He is one of the most efficient runners in all of the league. Every single time he touches the ball, it is a positive play. And there's no more Kareem Hunt for him to steal touches from. So that just gets me really excited about this offense. Plus, you pair that with a really good offensive line, which you can make a good argument that that is more valuable than just about anything for a running back in terms of production. I think Nick Chubb has a really big year, and I think honestly, I think the Browns are going to be a lot better than a lot of people think, just because of how good their entire team is in terms of overall depth. Do you have a lot of Chubb thoughts?
No, I'm interested to see who your next guy is because I think we're just at a point where it's like of the at the top 10, that bottom five, every single one of those guys just scares the shit out of me.
Yeah,
Like you're gonna have to pick them because you're gonna pick Chubb over like a Tony Pollard, but oh man, is it scary to grab Chubb? Just again, these guys are just at that wrong age where you just like it could be like Joe Mixon last season. Awesome year the year before, touchdown regression along with some injury luck, and bam, he's a nobody. And it's like Eckler has a chance to do that. Barkley has a chance to do that. Chubb has a chance to do that. I think Chubb's probably the most consistent of the three, but Barkley and Eckler probably have a little bit higher upside.
yeah. Chubb played all 17 games last year. That terrifies me in terms of his ability just to stay healthy this year. It just feels like he's kind of due for one. Knock on wood, 100%. The next guy I'm going here, there's a couple wide receivers that I'm considering. There's an RB that I'm really excited about just the overall situation because it really panned out last year. But I think I'm going to go with the wide receiver that I believe has the most upside and also just has a lot of touchdown potential this year. And I'm going CD Lamb for my
Okay, so
next
this is
pick.
the first real kind of tier shocker, I would say.
I love CD Lamb for this upcoming year. I feel like there was a lot of conflict going down between McCarthy and Kellen Moore last year. Whose team is it? Who's calling plays here? Now we have absolute clarity. I would have liked to see Kellen Moore just promoted to head coach, but we'll take McCarthy still. I think Dak Prescott has a huge year this year. I think he really needs to bounce back if he really wants to justify being the Dallas Cowboy quarterback going forward. And I think CD Lamb's going to have very little competition whenever it comes to wide receiver touches. No more Zeke Elliott 1 yard rushes on the goal line. No more Dalton Schultz getting those tight end red zone touches. It's Lamb. He's the big body receiver in this offense. And they went out and got Brandon Cooks, but he doesn't get touchdowns. So I think Lamb has an explosive year. This is his third year, right? Am I mistaken?
Fourth. I think it's his fourth year.
Either way, like once you hit that third, fourth year in the league, that's when wide receivers usually really, really start to take off. I think Lamb could be wide receiver one this year. That's how much I have faith in him for this upcoming season. He has done nothing to make me think otherwise. Yeah, he had that slow start last year, but then he really took off. So I like Lamb.
No, you liked Lamb last year. You like him just as much, if not more, this year. I don't hate the pick. Honestly, I could see him start to move up boards because, as I'm looking at the picks I have available, right? Like we're really starting to get into some iffy territory. Like I mean, obviously Cooper Cup had one hell of a season 2 years ago, but he has had injury history. Stafford's had injury history. Like it starts to get dicey if that's where you want your top pick to go. Okay, Tyreek Hill, injury history, quarterback injury history, etc. Like that gets scary. Josh Jacobs, I hate being the guy that drafts last year's RB1 because he just can't produce the way you want him to, right? I want someone else to reach for Jacobs. I don't want to be the one reaching for Jacobs, right? And then now you start falling into kind of where CD Lamb is expected. So it's, Derrick Henry, Pollard, Stephon Diggs. Like that's the range you're in. So I think this is where I'm willing to take the moonshot, if you will, risk it for the biscuit. I'd go Bijan Robinson here. I think he's a top 10 worthy pick. We saw that Arthur Smith is more than willing to run the ball like what 100 times a game. There's a reason that even though Algier had a good season, that they went ahead and stayed pat and grabbed Bijan. He's going to get a ton of work. It's nerve wracking grabbing the rookie with a top 5 pick. You look at years of CEH, etc. But Bijan, I think, is closer to Barkley than he is CEH on that spectrum. So you could have just a monster rookie year out of him.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And going back to your Cup comment, like it's so hard to pass up on Cup, right? Like it's basically CD Lamb's like ceiling is like the Cooper Cup season that we saw 2 years ago, right? And like Cup's actually done it. CD, I'm just projecting. So Cup's really hard to pass on. But if anyone's exciting enough to pass on Cup for, it's Bijan Robinson at this point. Like
Yeah.
he could have an absolutely insane season. It's really the thing that gives me pause is I just don't think that Arthur Smith, the Falcons head coach, is good for fantasy. I just don't think he likes our fantasy teams, and that makes me not want to take Bijan in the top 10.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be tough. I hope I don't have to make that decision, but I think there's gonna be a lot of people choosing between Bijan, Cooper Cup, and Tyreek Hill.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm looking at like Tyreek or Cup, and it's like, God, I don't love either. I'm gonna have to go with Cup though over Tyreek. He should be back and healthy. Stafford back and healthy. You still have Sean McVay around. Like when those two are playing together with Sean McVay, Cup's like a lock for 15 points a game. I don't know if you're going to see him back to 2021 type stats, right? I mean, that was just an elevated godlike season, but he's definitely a top 10 fantasy player. So it is worth taking at that late turn of the first round.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Cooper Cup's stats last year, they're still incredibly solid. Like he only played like 8.5 games because he got injured in that last one. And he still put up 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. Like he still had an incredibly productive season coming off of that Opoi season in 2021. It feels like Cooper Cup's been in the league forever. It feels like Tyreek Hill's been in the league forever, but they're still under 30. So like you can't feel too bad about taking either one of them. We're not talking about like Adam Thielen or something like that in terms of age. So you can't really go wrong with either one. And personally, I'd rather have Cooper Cup because he's not the one who's literally in the news right now for beating up a marina worker. Like Tyreek Hill's just a ticking time bomb whenever it comes to fantasy availability. I like both your picks here. I think they're both incredibly solid. Moving to my next pick, I'm excited about taking this guy. I know you said you're not because he was RB1 last year, but I'm taking Josh Jacobs top 10. I love the ability to get a guy who's still in a contract year. I don't think anyone in the league feels more disrespected than Josh Jacobs does right now. Goes on a tear, doesn't get rewarded with that big contract, and then he gets franchise tagged, and now he's just going to have to do it all over again. On top of the fact that he's incredibly young, Josh Jacobs is only 25 years old. Like, all right, let me triple check that. I don't want to say it with that much certainty. I don't want to say that much. Yeah, 25 years old, that much certainty. You know how old Najee Harris is in comparison?
Najee's probably 24 or 25 as well.
Also 25 years old. You know who has more NFL experience? Josh Jacobs. You know who has more receiving ability? Josh Jacobs. So I love the option of getting Josh Jacobs this year. Jimmy G is going to have to hand it off a ton, and I think that he's going to have another big motivated year. So I'm going that to kick off round 6. To kick off round 7, I'm between a couple of guys here. And I hate to do it to you, but I think I'm going to take your boy Ramondre Stevenson at this point. Maybe a bit of a reach, but all the reasons that we mentioned earlier in the podcast, lack of competition, how much faith it seems like Bill Belichick has in him, and just how well he finished the season last year. Like, that guy was an absolute stud going all the way down the stretch. It really felt like for a while Damian Harris might end up stealing some of his work, but Ramondre Stevenson just like literally would not let it happen. And I think this offense just overall is going to be a little bit more spread out. I think adding Juju Smith Schuster, a second year Tyquan Thornton, another year of seasoning for Mac Jones, and just overall more competent coaching is going to make a big, big difference for Ramondre Stevenson. And I'm pretty happy to take him in the top, what is this now, 12, top 14. I think that's kind
Yeah.
of where he should be.
I mean, Ramondre is definitely a nerve-wracking pick for me. Just any Patriots running back ever because of how often they change what they're trying to do. But we saw he has top 10 running back upside, so you kind of have to, at some point, just trust the stats and pull the trigger on it. So
Absolutely.
then, we talked about how important wide receivers are, and now I'm like between a rock and a hard place because there's a couple guys that I think if I don't get them right now, you're probably going to grab them with your next two. But I still see Tyreek Hill on the board. I still see Stephon Diggs on the board. I still see Devontae on the board. And it's like, again, this is still a receiver league. Those guys still produce. I think it has to go, pick your poison, Hill, Diggs here. They're still the wide receiver ones and pretty prolific offenses. So you just have to grab them. And I know Diggs is, he has his current off field issues. I think Tyreek has his always off field issues, but we're drafting for fantasy right now, so I think I'd have to go bang bang right there.
This is a wide receiver heavy area right here. Like, if you're going to draft a potential wide receiver one, I think this is the spot to do it in. Like, we already went through all the running backs, drafted a tight end, got the like crazy potential wide receivers. But if you're looking at that next guy, or maybe you like take a running back at 8 and then you can swing around at 12 and get another wide receiver one still, I think that is a beautiful way to draft this. And I think you nailed it perfectly going Hill and Diggs. Like, you cannot go wrong with either one of those guys. Still on the right side of 30, and two really great offenses that I think are really going to take off this year. I'm similarly going wide receiver though, and I'm also incredibly happy to get these guys still. I think they're really good values at this spot in the overall draft. I'm going to Devontae Adams, and I'm going AJ Brown.
Yep,
Like,
yep.
I think
It's
go ahead.
the four people we just picked. I think interchangeable. It's just really who would you prefer to cheer for at a certain point, and like I think they all have a ton of upside. I think Brown has the least upside of all of them, just based
Really,
off that offense.
I feel like he's meteoring up
No,
boards
I,
for
th- I
me.
think Devontae Smith's going to eat away a lot of his production. Combine that with the fact that they just run the ball like crazy. I see he has a limited ceiling
No more
to
Miles
me.
Sanders though. You know,
Doesn't matter, dude. It's you still got you don't
Hurts.
have the touchdown upside on the goal line, even though he's a huge big body receiver because Jalen Hurts is just going to run it through.
Yeah, I just feel like if we're going to see a guy who kind of ascends from that, tier 2 of wide receiver all the way up to the top of tier 1, I think CD is going to be right there, and I think AJ Brown is also up next for that kind of rise. And I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a very similar season as he did last year. I don't really feel like he's going to have too much of a slump going on. So
The thing to me. I mean, it makes me nervous. Again, I love Brown, so it's not like I'm digging the
yeah,
player.
we're
It's just
nitpicking here. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. I think I see the likelihood being not AJ Brown goes from mid tier two to top of tier one. The problem is I see AJ Brown sticking to mid to high tier two, Devontae jumping from 4 to tier two to 2, 2, or 3, and then Goddard as well. Like there's all three of those guys that just have so much potential with this offense that it just makes it hard to say, oh, it's going to be Brown, over say Devontae Adams, who's like the de facto target in that Raiders offense, or Diggs as the de facto target in the Bills offense.
yeah. Honestly, the guy who scares me in Philadelphia is more for personal reasons, DeAndre Swift, but we'll see how that works out. Personally, as of right now, and obviously things are going to change. I'm probably going to change this opinion 30 times between now and next season. I take the four wide receivers that were just taken in our draft. I rank them Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs. That's how I
Okay.
feel personally right now.
Yeah, so you and
However,
I
this might
honestly
change.
just flip flopped the two, and I think we're both happy as a clan with who we got.
Absolutely. Who you got next?
But, so this is I'm going to take one the best New York Jet player on the season, and then a player that is of obviously Matthew Mack's favorite player of all time. So we kind of just cleared out all wide receiver ones. So I think it's kind of back to running backs with huge upside. And to me, Brees Hall has to be on your radar as honestly mid to high round two pick because people kind of forget those first 6 games when the Jets were like 5-1. It was the Brees Hall show. Like Brees Hall is unbelievable. It just sucks that he got injured at a bad time. It's one of those ones that you can bounce back from, though, right? Like it's not an Achilles, it's not anything. I mean, it's an ACL, which isn't great, but I just see him having a monster season, and teams can't stack the box because Aaron Rodgers is in town. So then my next pick, if his last 6 games didn't happen, this guy would be dead to me. But Najee Harris turned it on once that foot got healthy. Their
Yeah.
offensive line got better. Man, I think Najee is he's gonna start moving up. I'm happy taking him in the first round this year. I know I got burned by him last year, but I'm like actually hyped on him this year the way you were last year. Maybe not as much because you I don't think you can get more hyped than you were, but like this is a Najee Harris season for sure. If you're late, like if you're the last pick, oh my goodness, you could easily go Najee Brees, and people think you're like reaching. It's like no, you just grab two of the best running backs, or you could go Najee, CD Lamb probably, and you could potentially have RB2 and wide receiver one. Like there's a lot of potential with some value picks that dudes could vault up the boards.
Drink the Kool Aid. I love it. Yeah, Najee Harris, I'm really excited about. However, Brees Hall, as you pointed out, what an exciting debut overall for him. Like, I can't remember who was called back, but that like 85-yard rush that he had was just so dang electric, where he just like went down the sideline and outran everybody. Like, if he comes back with like even like 90% of that speed, he might just still be the best running back in terms of overall speed in the entire NFL. So I'm excited about Brees. And I'm obviously excited about Najee Harris. I've seen a lot of statistics about him. People are split on how Najee Harris is going to perform this year. There's stats on him and his overall rushing yards over expected. His yards per carry were not that great, only 3.9. And then comparing him to Jalen Warren. But I think the thing that people are really underrating is one, Kenny Pickett's inevitable ability just to elevate this offense in his second year. And then secondly, the fact that they actually have a competent offensive line. Going into last year, you and I just kept talking about how bad that Steelers offensive line was. Like, not a recognizable name on the entire thing. This year, they actually have real life NFL players and not a YMCA squad on that offensive line. They went out and spent some real money, got some Super Bowl contending type of guys like who've contended for Super Bowls. Not saying the Steelers are going to contend for a Super Bowl, and I think that's going to make all the difference. I think that not facing 9-man boxes and actually having some push in front of him is going to make a huge difference for him. Only 25 years old. I love Najee for this year still, but we already knew that. Next up, if I can't get Najee, I'm going Travis Etienne. I love the lack of competition. I love the ability for this offense to maybe take a little step back passing wise because T Law just was on a tear in the second half of the season. It may become a little bit more running back forward. I think Etienne has a lot of untapped potential in terms of receptions. I could see him having like an Austin Eckler type season. So I'm happy to take him here. And this might be a surprise, but this is a guy I'm real high on. And I probably like wouldn't take him 18. However, like I think he's going to be available relatively in this range, and I would rather have him over some of the other guys that are in this range. And I'm going Chris Olave. Derek Carr has shown his ability to elevate receivers into another level of fantasy success. And Olave last year was insane for a rookie wide receiver, and that was with like Andy Dalton at quarterback. I think this upcoming year, Olave is going to get even more great opportunities, and some of those passes that Dalton was throwing, where they're like 15 yards underthrown, I think they're actually going to be on the money, and we see some big plays from Olave. I'm really excited about his upcoming season.
Yeah, no, I honestly I love the Olave pick there because if you look at the receivers left, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle. As far as like in our draft, who's left? It's like Jalen Waddle and who's another? Is there DK
Okay,
Metcalf? I
yeah,
guess so. Like
Garrett
I'm
Wilson,
with you, Olave, dude. Yeah, Garrett Wilson. I'm picking Olave. He's the de facto number one in the offense. Uh, Kamara might not play this year. Like I could just see Olave, much like Devontae Adams, just getting spoon fed 10, 15 targets a game, and just going sicko mode this year.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So then the guy that I think neither of you like love the pick, but if he dropped this low, you have to gobble him up. Tony Pollard has to come off the
Yeah,
board at this point. You just left him there for me.
that was my next
Uh,
guy. Yeah,
okay, so he doesn't have Zeke there anymore, so we don't know what's going to happen. We saw what he looked like last year without Zeke, and it was, I mean, just beautiful. So I think he's probably going to end up being a top 10 pick. People are going to trust that hype. There's a ton of Cowboys fans out there, etc. So I don't think you're going to get him low. But I'm not like I'm not anti Pollard. I just don't want to take him with like a top 8 pick. You know what I mean? So if the value's right, gobble him up. If not, I'd stay away a little bit. Um, but now we're kind of in a situation where it's like, okay, here are the big names left: Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, Mark Andrews. I love your ETN pick. I might have grabbed him. Devontae Smith is out there, kind of in no man's land, right? Like these are all
Debo.
we're starting to get into second options, I think, in offenses, and that's not what I want to do early on in the draft. The guy that people are sleeping on, and if he's available at pick 23, which is where we're technically at in this draft, I would be jumping all over it. I think he might even go lower. And like if you're pick number 5 and he reaches all the way back to like 37 or 40, wherever you're drafting, I'm taking Aaron Jones. I mean, who's a guy that
Fuck.
has proven more over the last 4 seasons, and people just like every year shit on him just a little bit more, and like he just keeps dropping, but he stays as a top 5 running back every year. Like I was all in on the AJ Dillon train last year, and it screwed me because when it came down to it, Aaron Jones just got more work, had more trust out of LaFleur, and the dude just produces when it matters. So like Aaron Jones keeps falling. I don't know why. He's going to be a huge part of that offense. They're going to have to run the ball even more this season. Like I'd just be so hyped to get him, especially this late in the draft.
Yeah, Aaron Jones just doesn't say die. You literally went my next two guys with both your picks, so we're pretty in sync with these like later second round running backs for sure. Mine definitely went Pollard and then Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones with half PPR last year was RB9. He's not that old. He doesn't say die. This offense is going to be less air heavy. No more Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be a basically rookie quarterback and Jordan Love back there. And like AJ Dillon's hanging around, but like that's just never mattered for Aaron Jones, right? Before it was Jamal Williams. Last year was AJ Dillon. And Aaron Jones just keeps producing. So I think he's a baller. He's one of my favorite players in the league, even though he's a Packer. And I think he's going to have a crazy good season still this year. And a lot of people are sleeping on him.
Well,
I could totally expect him going 40 or 50, like you're saying. And he's totally worth a top 25 pick.
yeah, the thing that I don't get is, okay, I mean, what's the difference between him and Eckler, aside from Eckler has a higher ceiling, but like every year Eckler is creeping upboards, even though yeah, when he's producing as expected, and Aaron Jones producing as expected keeps falling down boards. And it's like, why is he not just maintained that 10th overall kind of late first round pick that he's been for the past 4 years? He just keeps falling later into second round. It's like he hasn't done anything to make you think he should be picked lower, yet he just keeps dropping. I think he's going to be a steal this year.
Yeah, I mean, just comparing their production, it's not all that different. The only difference for Eckler is he just gets 100 freaking receptions. But if you want to get a receiving type back, Aaron Jones is not a bad consolation prize, especially in the second, third, or honestly, he might end up going to the fourth round because he's just not a sexy name this upcoming
Yeah.
year. So we have a similar like league winner type guy here. I kind of like it. Next guy for me, I'm between a lot of people. You've kind of laid him out a little bit. I think a lot of people would go Garrett Wilson here. I think you and I are both not as excited as a lot of people are about him. I would love to go Amon-Ra St. Brown, but honestly, I feel like he's going to just get triple covered for the first handful of weeks. There's no tight end in Detroit. There is no wide receiver 2 in Detroit, at least for the first 6 weeks. And we're primed for some Jared Goff fall off. I think a lot of people might go Jahmyr Gibbs here. I'm obviously not doing that. And so I'm kind of between a handful of players, and I think where I'm gonna go. Hang on, I want to double check I'm not missing anybody. I think I'm going Jalen Waddle. And as you mentioned, we're going a lot of just like second options and offenses. I think Tua, if he would have stayed healthy last year, Jalen Waddle would have had an even bigger year. Project maybe a little bit of regression from Tyreek Hill, and you get the number 2 best overall player in this offense. There's no real running back competition here in Miami. They didn't go out and get a potential bell cow like Bijan Robinson or anything like that. Dalvin Cook goes there. That's a little bit scary, but that hasn't happened yet. I think that Waddle is a worthwhile guy, just especially because of his ability to just get receptions. He gets those short passes and just takes off with a cloud of smoke. And overall talent wise, I think Jalen Waddle's right there with what Tyreek Hill is right now. So get good players and good offenses, and good things happen.
Yeah, you highlight a ton of great things there. I think Waddle probably is the right pick. I think Andrews could have been a good choice as well. Just trying to get tight end 2 that can be tight end 1. I think you're kind of at that point though where I would be potentially grabbing Jameer Gibbs. I mean, they shipped Jamal Williams and Swift out of town, and that reminds me the Eagles also have D Swift now, who I think could eat into AJ Brown's workload. Um, I
He
think
scares me.
Jameer Gibbs is primed to get as much work as Bijan Robinson, and people aren't taking him until the 30s or 40s versus they're taking Bijan as like a top 5 pick. Gibbs might be the play.
Swift is gonna haunt me all year. I
Absolutely.
can already see it. Like it's gonna be bad, man. I'm gonna be depressed. I don't think Gibbs is gonna be good this year. I think that maybe next year there's some potential. I think he's gonna have a bigger adjustment to the NFL than a lot of people are expecting. He never was 1,000-yard rusher in college, and like that just does not bode well whenever it comes to NFL production. So I'm not even considering Gibbs. Like Gibbs is like not even a top 50 player for me, if I'm being 100% honest. I think there's going to be a lot of adjustment period. Um, some of the other guys that I had kind of just like right on the cusp, Mark Andrews, as you mentioned, but now he's kind of like got a lot of competition low key. The main guy that I'm also still considering that I'm kind of shocked that you didn't go because I feel like you're a bigger fan of him is Derrick Henry. Last year, Derrick Henry was
I'm
literally a top 5 running back.
out on
Oh, you're
Derrick
out?
Henry. Yeah.
You're done?
I'll let someone else draft him in the first round. I'm not doing it.
Running back 4. You wouldn't take him in the third round, fourth round?
Well, in the third round, yeah, but we're still in the second round here. I mean, I agree. He's still kind of consensus a top 10 pick as far as experts go, but I just don't like. No, that offense didn't get better, right? They only got worse this offseason. He got hurt. Uh, I mean, Tannehill's not going to open the field up for him. Like it's going to be more 9-man boxes. I don't love it. I don't love that situation. I picked enough scary players, enough older running backs that I don't want to touch. Like I'm not going to get stuck with Henry.
His last 4 games last year, down the stretch, coming back from injury, all that. 19 points, 24.3 points, 17.6 points, and then 13.3, a bit of a stinker in week 18. Pretty dang solid still. Like the guy gets a lot of carries, and they're not going to throw to a receiver this year. They don't have any. So I don't know. I'm considering drafting him in the 4th round, and I don't think I've ever drafted Derrick Henry in my entire life. So food for thought.
I guess half PPR it's a little better, man. Full PPR, I'm not going anywhere near Derrick Henry.
Fair, fair. All right, that is our mother of all mocks. Let us know what you think, and I like it. I think we put together a very solid 24. We actually end up hitting every single guy in my top 22. So I had a couple other guys, Kenneth Walker the third and DK Metcalf. But honestly, that Seattle offense is such a crapshoot just because there's so many weapons there. Were there any other guys there that you were kind of around the cusp of?
I mean, I would say I think you grabbed the guys right. Like it really was that last pick was the only one that was like I don't know where to go with it.
A
I
quarterback,
think
maybe?
no, I'm not taking quarterback that early. I think it really is like T Higgins could have been a Waddle replacement because he does have some monster games. He's just not super consistent. And then Devontae Smith too, I think could be up there.
Yeah, I agree.